The main three tournaments just happened, bro. We have the Magma, FrogEX, and the Ursiiday to talk about. So let's do a meta update and let's see if anything has actually changed, because you know the meta developments usually happen in these big tournaments. So first, let's cover the FrogEX because it does come out first. It's on Thursday. It's a best of 3 all the way through. Buzzwole ended up taking it with a Darkrai Giratina. So it looks like Darkrai Giratina is having a rise in the meta. I can show you guys also the winning deck list for Buzzwole because there are some couple of different variants. So yeah, this is the 2 Pheromosa, 1 Cortana version, 2 Ericas, 2 Cyruses, 2 Lucamines, 1 Leaf Cape, 1 Rocky Helmet. Standard Buzzwole list spread, nothing very special. I guess we could also see what he beat. Yeah, so they basically beat like every meta deck besides Zard, which is, you know, their worst matchup. So a miracle run, I would say. You know, dodging a, you know, Charizard actually, you know, in the top cut is kind of amazing. I don't know how many Charizards there actually were. I guess we could see almost no Charizards. There's like 1 Charizard player that I see. Maybe there's like 2, but so very lucky this guy chose Buzzwole. Charizard was not around. There was like a decent amount of Oricorio decks too, at least in the FrogEX. But besides that, dude, it's traditional everything. There was actually a Decidueye Masquerada player who ended up making, as we can see here, 25th. So they had some pretty good matchups. You know, they had Darkrai Giratina, you know, Savali Oricorio actually surprisingly won. But at the same time, you know, going second if they don't have Savali right away can be a pretty decent matchup. And then you just, you know, they lost to Sylveon Greninja, lost to another Savali deck. I'm not surprised. Like I said, I don't think Savali is very good for Masquerada. And beat us, at least they're beating like these Sylveon Greninjas. Like they beat like all of them but 1. And then just lost to another Savali. Like I've been saying, bro, Savali is the reason Masquerada Decidueye is not very good. So you know what? They still made top 32 with like a deck I would say is pretty mediocre in this meta. So like props to them. We could also look at the deck list. So they just had like the traditional, bro. They just had 2 Ericas. And the cool thing is they were actually playing 2 of the non-EX Decidueye. So the non-EX Decidueye is obviously going to make them better for that Oricorio matchup, as Oricorio was pretty popular. Also does allow them to have actually make their opponent go through 3 Pokemon. Because, you know, if Decidueye EX, like if you only have Masquerada and then the Decidueye EX, that's only 2 Pokemon. Whereas 2 Masqueradas into Decidueye sometimes can be more rough for your opponent to actually go through. So kind of surprising there wasn't like 1 tech option for like maybe a Decidueye EX. But I think it's still a cool deck. Still think it's a cool deck, and I just wanted to talk about it, bro, because like it's really the only interesting one to talk about, because everything else is just the same as it's been. So we can just like kind of like take the FrogEX, throw it aside, bro. There's really nothing besides this deck. Cool, the Buzzwole one. Charizard player is absent, kind of surprising, but you know, pretty rough matchup into Oricorio, and Oricorio has been on the rise until lately. Next we have the Magma, dude. So in the Magma, Darkrai Giratina ended up taking it. We just a bunch of Sylveon Greninjas. So we have the Sylveon Magnezone, and so apparently the new thing in Sylveon Magnezone is some of these versions were running Oricorio. Most of them weren't, or at least the ones I've seen like that have always like done pretty well in these tournaments. It's kind of been a deck that's like been there since week 1. But they're starting to run Tapu Lele, and Tapu Lele has 2 good matchups. Obviously he's good into Giratina because we've seen last format in Celestial Guardians is really good in the Giratina. Also does 80 to 100 damage to that Stoke Charizard. So can be an additional non-EX way to do a bunch of damage and then have the Magnezone come in after. So I like the, obviously, you know, also in other matchups, and can you get stuff like weak enough, like for example, you can step like a Buzzwole to be in range of a Magnezone. They could always Erica, but you know, Tapu Lele is always that nice bench sniper. Yeah, I think Magnezone Sylveon, you know, is all right, bro. It's pretty good, nothing crazy. It's not going to be the most broken deck, but it can be, you know, if you go first, you have the Sylveon, draw everything. And with the addition of Tapu Lele, it just makes those matchups that were kind of like all right, but you kind of needed, like for example, you kind of needed that Giant Cape to be Zard. With Tapu Lele, you kind of don't need that anymore because just you have 2 ways. Like setting up 2 Magnezones, you don't need anymore in that matchup. You could just Tapu Lele and Magnezone, potentially, if they don't have like something like a Lily, and beat those bad matchups. So yeah, I think it's just a cool utilization that this deck was not using before that. Besides that, it's just the same decks, bro. There was a Guzzlord Darkrai player. So this person ended up using a Guzzlord Nihilego. They just slotted in a Darkrai, you know, as an additional, you know, obviously dark type. The chip's also nice, you know, because Darkrai chip plus the Nihilego Poison Bread does stack up. That's going to be 40 to 50 damage depending on how many you have. And plus, you know, like that deck does have Lucamine, bro. Like you can charge up a Darkrai and then do a Darkrai Guzzlord game. That's always a possibility. And I like it. They also have the Team Rocket Grunt with the Grindcore. They obviously have the 2 poison barbs down here, and double hand disruption. I think it's just a cool like extra tech option in this. As someone who's played a lot of Guzzlord, more of like the Naganel version, but like for example, I'm not a fan of the Nahelgo version personally, but I feel like with the dark red tech, I could definitely see the vision, and I definitely want to try this deck out actually personally. So yeah, just a cool tech option, man. They also went undefeated until top 32, which is something cool to note, and they just basically beat every single meta deck. Oricorio, you know, if you have also Nahelgo and the Poison Barb, so this deck has always been pretty good against, well, Guzzlord is really good against the volley, and then Nahelgo is really good against Oricorio, so I'm not really surprised it beat those. And it did lose the Flareon, Leafeon, which I do think is a pretty bad matchup actually for Guzzlord, just because you can't one-shot anything, so you kind of need, like, obviously you have Darkrai in this deck, but like at the same time you gotta like manually charge a 4 energy, so, and like Leafeon does 2-tap literally like every single thing you have, especially for the grass weakness. Obviously Guzzlord could survive, but then like you don't want to damage it because then Flareon could just like Cyrus you in, or Sabrina, depending on what they have. So I'm not surprised, but it's just a bad matchup. Unfortunate way to end like a godlike run. Okay, so then we have the Ursiiday, so this is obviously the biggest tournament, and there was like 600 players. I think it was like 599 or something. I could double check that, but it's only 7 rounds of Swiss, so it wasn't as big as usual. And Incineroar's on top. We will get into that, but let's look at all the other top 64 decks real quick. So it's just nothing spicy, bro. There's nothing spicy. There's a Luxray, which isn't spicy. We've seen Luxray. We've talked about Luxray. Like, it did very good that 1 week, and it's always been a deck that is there. It's not going to be the strongest Oricorio deck, but it's still a strong deck that can compete. It's not going to be, it's like I guess like low tier in meta wise, but like it's still cool, bro. Besides that, there's also another Guzzlord Darkrai deck. I guess I can just click on it. Let's see if it's the exact same one. Yeah, it looks like it's like the exact same deck. I think they have a PCL, which I don't think the other version had. This is not the right deck. Yeah, this other one, no, it did have PCL. Yeah, so it's the exact same deck we just talked about. Yeah, but there's just no meta development, bro. There's like new tech options in pre-existing decks, like the Darkrai and Guzzlord. There's the Tapu Lele in the Magma Zone deck. But besides that, bro, it's the same mode, bro. I mean, we have everybody knows 18 card Incineroar, or not 18 card, but Solo Incineroar is a deck. It kind of just been garbage because Oricorio has been very prevalent these last couple weeks, or at least like this last week and a half. But as we can see here, the Oricorios didn't exist in this tournament, so there's way more Zards than every other tournament. So, and obviously Incineroar can take full advantage. It's the only deck going 8-0. I mean, it's just beat a bunch of Charizards. I mean, Charizard can't one-shot it. Incineroar does pretty good damage, especially of how it's early aggressive. I'm gonna go on and say this guy was having the draws of his day, man. This guy was just drawing good. That's all I'm gonna say. This guy was like legit just drawing good. Obviously, you know, you probably outplayed them, but you take a look at the deck list, see what the cool tech options are. I mean, there's gonna be a lot of room for trainers. Yeah. Playing the non-damaging ones makes sense. You know, you don't really want to damage yourself in this meta. Obviously you don't activate yourself, but like at the same time, like, do you really need it? Sometimes, like, sometimes it can be useful, but at the same time, you're usually not getting that 3 energy on Incineroar right away. So not damaging yourself. Like, for example, if you damage yourself, like some Charizards have been playing red, you could put yourself in range of a red. So I understand why he's not playing the damaging ones, which is the only, like, I guess, like, unique thing about this list. Besides that, you have so many room for supporters. You have 2 Hows for the additional 30 damage. You have the 2 Lilies so you don't die. Then you just have 2 hand disruptions. The only thing this deck is really missing is a Cyrus, but at the same time, you don't really need a Cyrus with this deck, because you're usually like one-shotting things late game anyways, especially with that Rocky Helmet and the Hows, obviously. So congrats on you for going 8-0. I hope you don't run into an Oricorio that made top cut tomorrow. Obviously, you can still beat that with the burns plus the Rocky Helmet, but it is still probably a rough matchup at the end of the day, depending on what else they are playing. Also, I hope you actually draw good. To be honest, I hope this guy God rolls, or them. I hope they God roll. I hope they win the tournament and basically shut on every single Sylveon Greninja. Besides that, though, dude, there's just no meta development. There's not really much to talk about besides just like cool niche decks that are like making these top cuts. Like, obviously, like Incineroar is not going to be the most consistent deck. It's not the best deck of the format. Cool that they're 8-0. The Masquerade and the Decidueye, definitely not like a subpar deck in this meta. I'm glad they are doing very good. And then the Darkrai Guzzlord deck, just a niche option. Cool to see. Correction, there was 8 rounds, but there's actually nothing spicy. at the very last spot, or like the second last spot, we do have the Sylveon SP on deck. I thought I was tripping, bro, because I was editing and I saw this Greninja Rampardos in Top Cut, but I realized there actually was 8 rounds. But yeah, so there's just nothing. Anyways, that's gonna be it for the meta update. Those are just some cool decks. Like I said, we could look at all these other decks like the Sylveon Greninjas, the Buzzwole, but we've already seen these lists 2 million times. So there's just no point. Like, I don't want to waste anybody's time. I just wanted to do this quick and fast. And yeah, that's like, this is all that's been going on. There's not going to be any new meta development. I don't think until the new set, or if there is, it's going to be too late. So hope you guys enjoyed the meta update. I just wanted to make this real fast. Like I said, only like 10-12 minute video. Peace out, have a lovely day, and I guess let me know if you guys think any of these cool decks that somehow made Top Cut are cool. I definitely don't recommend trying some of them in a ranked. And yeah.